Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to Season 2 of the GTA Online Multi-Class Endurance Championship. This first round takes place on the Blaine County 24-hour racing circuit and we'll be using muscle cars, with GT1 drivers in Dominators, GT2 drivers in Vigeros and GT3 drivers in Picadors. For this first episode, I'm going to let my previous self introduce all the teams and then I'll come back to you to explain all about the race, the championship and these videos themselves. Right, I'll introduce the teams that we've got here. So, first up is my team. Let me get rid of this. First up is my team, the Ron Racing team, based on the sort of Gulf livery from Motorsports. You've got VXWK in GT1, myself in GT2, and Tyler Durden 4 in GT3. Next up is the Maze Bank team. So in GT1 you've got Abe Gunners, GT2 is Zenzi, and GT3 is SS92. I'm liking the logos. A few people have created crews specifically with the logos of the team that they're racing for. Obviously the Ron Racing logo, the Maze Bank logo, just adds a bit to it. Who's yellow and red? Oh yeah, Vapid Pegassi. Vapid Pegassi. In GT1 there's Hizen. GT2 is Campo Colin, who otherwise known as Futuro, and GT3 is Lance Revo WRC. Yellow and red, obviously they've got the full-on suits going with that as well. Next up is Wolves International Realty. So in GT1 there is nobody. Who's in GT1 for Wolves? Oh yeah, that's Drifting. Drifting's in GT1 for Wolves. GT2 is Subaru. And GT3 is Smithy112, giving everybody the finger, as you would expect. Then we have Cockatoos. The Cockatoos Club and Nightclub and Bar. GT1 there's Mayor Ryan. GT2 is Dodo Monopoly. GT3 is James Nash subbing for Jay Santos today. This is Team Overflood, obviously the makers of the Entity, Overflood. Chris D22 is in GT1. Moosted is in GT2. And who's in GT3? 40 is in GT3. Red, who's red? Oh, E-Caller, of course. The E-Caller team, GT1 is Craig9876, GT2 is Shred Ninja, GT3 is Thel46. Obviously the little E-Caller logo there on the front. And is this finally? Oh no, there's one more team over there. LSDWP, so what that stands for is the Los Santos Department for Water and Power. That is for Massacre Mace in GT1, J Solon 7 in GT2, and I don't know how to say that properly, YMAROGCO in GT3, subbing in for Alpha's Legend this week. Last team, don't get ran over. And this is Grotti, the Grotti team. So we have 3 car makers doing this endurance as having teams. Yeah, I would prefer to be able to do this without people jerking all over me, but never mind. So on Grotti we've got Parksguard in GT1. No, wait, I got that wrong. Yeah, Parksguard in GT1, Pardonias in GT2, and Alucard in GT3. So there you have it, those are the teams and drivers that will be contesting the entire second season of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship. I won't be introducing the teams in every single video. I just wanted to do for this first one to really just introduce you to the guys who will be racing and the kind of team makeup that we've got. So obviously, you know, I've made a video about this, but it makes sense to explain a little bit more about the championship. So we have basically 3 different classes racing in once. So this is the Multi-Class Endurance Championship. Each race is an endurance race in GTA terms. Each race lasts an hour and a half long. Now we have 3 different classes with this, so for every single race we'll be using a different car class. So for example muscle cars, compacts, SUVs, but within that there's also 3 different specific classes. They're denoted by GT1, GT2 and GT3, and basically these are determined on sort of the quickest cars in the class. For example, for muscle cars we've got the Dominator, which is the quickest muscle car, then we've got the Vigero in GT2, which is a little bit slower, and then we've got the Picador in GT3, which is very, very slow. So there's basically 3 different races all going on at once. Now what happens is at the start of each race, as you're seeing here, we get led around on a formation lap by Shaggy, aka G-Unit. I'll link his channel in the description. He's basically our official race starter and our spectator for the race as well, so you will see a lot of different shots from his perspective, and there are some really, really cool shots throughout the race. So these videos are going to be slightly different from Season 1. It's not just going to be about my own perspective on the race, it's going to try and include everybody else as well, and give more of a rounded version of what happens during the race. So as you can see, Shaggy's led us around the circuit on the formation lap. We've all got into position, and that is basically having all the GT1 cars at the front, all the GT2 cars behind with a bit of a gap, and then all the GT3 cars behind that. And that just minimises all the issues we get at the start of the race by having GT1 cars and GT2 cars together. Now, barring a few incidents, as we saw here with Chris being a bit of a troll, the start went really well. You know, we managed to get all into position reasonably well. Shaggy sort of makes sure that we're all in the right positions and all nicely spaced out. And yeah, we make sure that we're in GT1, GT2 and GT3. As soon as Shaggy is happy with all the positions, he comes back to the front of the grid, puts down a sticky bomb, and that is the official start of the race. So I'm basically going to, as you can see, he's going back to the front of the grid at the moment in the top left. I'm going to just show the start from my own perspective at this point. So basically all I'm doing at this point is waiting to see the sticky bomb explosion. When that sticky bomb explosion goes off, I know the race has started and I can start going, and everybody's doing the same thing. So, as you saw there, I managed to get a really, really good start. I started in 4th position, and I'll explain more about the starting positions as we go through the video. But I started in 4th, and I knew it was important with a long run down to the first corner that I needed to get a good start. And if I could get up into either 1st or 2nd, it would be really, really good for my rest of the race. But as you saw there, I managed to get a very, very good start, get a bit of a boost going on, and I got up into 1st position by the first corner. Now I overtook a Dominator there, who's a GT1 car. He made a little mistake or was pushed wide. I'm not exactly sure what happened to cause him to be there. But basically at this point, you know, I've got a little bit of a gap to the rest of the GT2 cars. I'm not racing the cars in GT1. I'm not technically racing any of the Dominators. You know, each of the GT classes that we have are only racing against each other. So you get the same amount of points for winning in the Dominators as you get for winning in the Picadors in GT3, and there are 3 specific championships all at once. Now I want to keep this Dominator behind me around this section because, you know, I don't want to go too wide or have any issues, so that's what I'm just trying to do, try and keep it nice and clean. And as you can see here, this is from Shaggy's perspective. You'll see me sort of mixing it in with this group of Dominators, and that's exactly what I want. You know, the longer that I can stay with the Dominators, the better, because it means I'm pulling away from the GT2 cars, which are coming through the shot now. So this Dominator does get me on the left hand side, obviously on the top left, obviously because the Dominator has much higher top speed. There he goes, as the GT3 cars now come around that corner going onto the main straight. And really this is the only point throughout the whole race that all 25 cars that we had are all on the main straight together. So we did have 2 disconnections at the very start, and they were both in the GT1 class. The rule that we have is if we have 3 disconnections from one class or 4 disconnections overall, we will restart the race and try again. But we had 2 disconnections from the GT1 class, so it was unlucky for them. But we do have 25 different people going in the race, obviously 7 in the GT1 class and 9 in GT2 and GT3. So my race has gone well at this point. You know, I've managed to get a really good start. I've got a decent gap to the rest of the GT2 field, the longer that I can stay with these Dominators in front of me, the better. You know, if I can just stay on the back of them, obviously they're in quicker cars, they are going to be quicker than me, but if I can just, you know, stay within reach of them, then that would be great for me, because it shows that I'm putting on some decent pace. Now this GT1 car makes a mistake there. I managed to get in front, and again I'm thinking, if I can keep this GT1 car behind me, then that's even better, because that's sort of another vehicle in between myself and the chasing pack in the GT2 cars. So that's what I try to do. You know, I obviously in a multi-class race like this, when you've got quicker cars, you don't want to defend overly too much. You know, you're not really aiming to slow down the quicker cars. But if I myself am quicker than a GT1 car, then I'm going to want to stay in front of them, because it means that I've got a bit more leeway between myself and the chasing pack. And that's basically what happens. I managed to get in front of this GT1 car and stay in front. So my first lap has been very, very good. You know, it's probably been as good as it possibly could have been. I've managed to get a reasonably decent gap to the rest of the GT2 field. I've got a Dominator in between myself and the other GT2 cars. But at the same time, we've got, you know, different battles going on in all three classes. So here you see the GT1 cars all coming through the final corner, going back onto the main straight, and then I just pop round and you can see me there. So I'm trying to keep with those Dominators. I'm not necessarily racing them, but it's good to be able to stay on the back end of them. And there's the rest of the GT2 field, so that's the kind of distance that I had after the first lap. So that start really did pay off for me, and that's what's got me this good position right now. Now, this isn't all just about me, you know. There are 25 people in this race. Normally there'll be 27. So there's 26 other people to think about, and the fact that everybody has their own separate race, and there's 3 different classes as well that all have separate races themselves. As you see there, the GT3 class coming around the final corner, they all had they were all very close, having their own battles. So what we've got here are 4 different perspectives on the first lap. So as you can see, I'm in the top left, Vigero's in the top right, and you'll see me just kind of shoot past him here, so it is all synced up. And then you've got Zenzi in the bottom left, who started sort of near the back of the GT2 field, and of course Shaggy's perspective of the start of the race, and you'll see sort of what he gets up to on the first lap whilst we're going around and racing. So the reason that I'm putting this here is really just to show that there are so many different perspectives of the same race. You know, just because I managed to get a good start and get away at the front doesn't mean to say that nothing else happened for anybody else. And as you'll see, it is quite an action-packed start, at least in the GT2 field. So I've got my good start. I've got past the Dominator. Vigero in the top right is up into 2nd place because he managed to get a really good start as well. I just got in front of him, and Zenzi is just behind, sort of at the back, trying to work his way through the traffic. Now obviously he started near the back of the grid, so you can't expect to go from the back of the grid to the front of the grid straight away. So he's just basically trying to work his way through and overtake people where he can. Whereas Vigero's in kind of a battle for some of the top 2 positions, and I'm just trying to build the gap that I already have at the front. So this is where it all starts to kick off a little bit, if you like. You know, there's some Dominators in front of me that I'm just trying to manage because one of them is a little bit slower at that point, so I'm trying to manage that. Then you'll see in the top right that Vigero has a bit of a moment here and hits the lamppost. That causes a few others to go off. Zenzi manages to get around it in the bottom left, makes up a few positions there, and gets himself up into, I think, 4th position at this point. So this is just one incident in the first lap that we never would have seen if it hadn't have been for showing these different perspectives. And that's what I like about the fact that we're on next gen now, is that you can see all these different perspectives from other people's different clips. So it's not just about what happens in my race, it's about what happens in everybody's races, and there's 3 different races going on simultaneously. So as you can see here, you know, I've got a bit of a gap to the chasing GT2 pack. Zenzi's battling for 3rd position, and Vigero decides to go into the pit lane because obviously he had a accident at the start there, and he needs to repair his car, and that's where the pit lane is. So he chooses to go into the pit lane, which puts him behind a few GT3 cars. So at this point now his job is to get in front of those GT3 cars and start chasing down the rest of the GT2 pack. So you know, this is the different aspects and the different ways that a multi-class race can run, and especially a big race with a lot of people like this. You do have different perspectives. You do have different people having different aspects of the race and different experiences. So although I managed to get off at the start, we had so basically what we've had is someone sort of in the middle of the pack, which was myself, who managed to get a really good start, get up into first place and kind of drive away. We've had Vigero in the top right, who sort of had a good start himself but then had an incident, and now he's having to fight his way back up through the pack and get through the slower GT3 cars. And then we had Zenzi, who's in the bottom left, who had a good start as well, but was sort of near the back of the grid in his starting position. And now he's sort of in the mid pack, trying to work his way through the cars. And that's the beauty of this kind of racing. You see, there are so many different perspectives, and this isn't only happening in our race, it's happening in the GT1 class as well, and it's happening in the GT3 class. For example, the Dominator that I overtook in the first few corners, he must have had an incident to be off like that, and he's working his way back up. Whereas Chris, who is the leader in GT1 at this time, he gets a really good start from pole position and manages to drive away. Every single person in the race has their own little story, and each of the three races has their own overreaching story as well. You know, it's not just one race anymore where everybody does the same thing, and everybody has the same experiences. So that's what I love about this sort of thing. That's what I love about this multi-class racing environment, and specifically an endurance racing environment as well. There's so many different stories to tell. Now, as you can see here, you know, we're coming on to the second lap. I'm away at the front. Zenzi's managing to get up into third place, as you can see here, and Vigero is in the top right, chasing us down. And I just wanted to put this in really just to show that there are different perspectives to the race. I might not necessarily do this in every video, but it's a good idea just to show you guys that it's not always simple as just going around a track and seeing where you end up. Every single person has their own different perspective. So at this point, we're now back with Shaggy's view of it, and he's basically spectating in first person, as you can see. I'm in the top left, and it's all basically synced up. So as you can see, me coming past Shaggy there, I'm also in the exact same point in the top left from my own perspective. So throughout the course of this rest of this video, a lot of the footage will be from Shaggy's perspective like this, because it just looks incredible. There are some amazing shots, and I really want to thank him for, first of all, starting our race and not making sure we were all organised at the front, doing the pace car start, and for staying in the race as well for the entire hour and a half, getting all of these great cinematic kind of shots, and really being able, and that allows me to really tell you guys the story of not just my own race, but everybody else's race as well. So as you can see, you know, that was the first car in the GT3 field, and this is the chasing GT3 pack, and it is quite I wouldn't say boring, but not a lot really does happen throughout the race that is warranting sort of major highlights. And the reason for that is that, you know, it's a very, very long track. The differences in pace between the GT1 and the GT2 cars isn't all that much. We do end up lapping the GT3 cars quite a bit, but the GT2 cars, some of them get lapped, some of them don't. So as you saw there, that was the GT1 leader, the overall leader, Chris D22 going through, and then you've got Mer Ryan coming through in second. And basically we seem to have the same sort of thing in all three of the classes. So there was one person who managed to sort of get away at the start. That was Chris in GT1, myself in GT2, and 40 in GT3. All of us managed to get a really good gap in the first few laps, and that was something that I sort of really wanted to focus on. You know, I got a good start, and then I knew that I had to pump in some really quick laps because everybody else would be battling. So as you can see there's me coming through the picture now, and then you'll notice that a Dominator goes past, but there is a reasonably big gap after that to the chasing GT2 pack. In fact, no, the Dominator's even further behind. So that's Zenzi and Doodle. Those are second and third in GT2. They have a really good battle all the way through the race. But I know that at this point, you know, those guys were going to be battling for the previous few laps, and between themselves now. They're in with the pack of everybody else. I made sure to set some really, really quick laps during that phase of the race because I needed to create that gap. As it happens, I'm able to extend the gap throughout the race, and it goes from sort of 10 seconds to 15 seconds to 20 seconds, and then that allows me to take it easy in the last couple of laps, but we'll come on to that later on. So as I said, you know, there was 3 of us that kind of in each race there was 3 of us that managed to get a really good start and get a good gap to the rest of everybody. You know, Chris in the GT1s, myself in GT2, and the next car that we should see will be 40 in the GT3 class. Here he is coming through now. So he got a really good start, just the same as I did, just the same as Chris did in GT1, and there's a reasonably big gap already from him to the chasing GT3 pack. Now that was pretty much the story of the race, and it's amazing to see that happens in both GT1, GT2 and GT3 at the same time. As you can see, that there's a big gap there, and you've got the rest of the GT3 pack coming around now, and that is exactly the sort of thing that we saw in the GT1 pack and the GT2 pack as well. So the mid pack were all very close together, but there was just one person in each class that managed to get away at the start, and the nature of the course kind of lends itself to that a little bit. You know, it is a longer track. It's certainly not as long as the North Loop, obviously, but it is a reasonably long track, and that means that any chances of having to overtake slower cars isn't necessarily as large as it would be on another track. So one of the major things about multi-class racing is that you will come up against slower cars. You know, if you're in the GT1 class, you can expect to be overtaking the GT2 and the GT3 cars, putting a lap on them because you're that much quicker than them. Same for the GT2, you're going to have to be wary of getting overtaken by GT1 cars and having to overtake GT3 cars when you come round to lap them. So that's something that isn't necessarily shown as well as it probably could be in this first race. You know, our next race is on Los Santos GP, which is a much shorter circuit. You will see that a lot more, and also in certain races we have much bigger gaps between all of the cars in each class, GT1, GT2, GT3, so you will see more overtaking, more lapping, and that will lead itself to more action as well, because you do have to be careful about that sort of thing. But I think the main standout for this race was just the incredible views that you get. I mean, look at that, it's absolutely beautiful. This game, Grand Theft Auto 5, can be so beautiful at times, especially when the sun's setting. On this track, it just looks amazing, it really, really does. And some of the cinematic shots that Shaggy gets are just absolutely incredible. Even to race on this track, when you're doing an hour-and-a-half race, that means that in game time, you're really doing a 48-hour race. You know, the sun sets twice, it comes up twice as you're going through the race, and to be experiencing that whilst you are racing around the track for an hour and a half, it's close to being magical. You know, it really is nice. It really is a nice experience on a track like this that's nice and wide open. It has some great views. You get some amazing shots from the sky with the sun setting, and even later on when you know, you see the silhouettes of the mountains in the background with the stars as a backdrop. You do really get some incredible shots and some incredible views, and that just adds to the experience. That's all part of the experience of an endurance race. You feel the track in multiple different ways, during the day, during the night. You know, all these different aspects to endurance racing. It's not just about necessarily racing around a track. It's the full experience of what you get, and this is one of the best views, I have to say, from Shaggy's perspective. That was incredible. You know, you just see cars so close at this point, and I think I'll be one of the next cars to come. In fact, yes, I am. I'm the next car to come across. And as you can see, you know, it is still all synced up. I'm in the top left doing exactly the same corner whilst he's watching. So yeah, the videos that I'm going to be doing for this series are going to be more like this than they were in the previous season. So the previous season, I basically just put up my perspective of the race directly from the live stream. But for season 2, I wanted it to be a little bit more professional. You know, I wanted it to be a bit more, not necessarily my own race all the time, just give it a wider perspective as what happens in the race. And because Shaggy decided to actually stay in and record all of this in, you know, full 1080p quality, it just looks fantastic, and to be able to show you all of these different shots is just absolutely great. So that's how these videos are going to go, I feel. You know, they're not just going to be showing the the live stream footage again. It's going to be a little bit more involved than that. Different perspectives, obviously Shaggy's perspective showing more cinematic shots. My own perspective will sort of mostly always be in the top left. Sometimes I'll bring it in to be the full screen if something important happens. And you know, if something does happen where my reaction was a good one during the race or something like that, I can always include the live stream footage as well. You know, just because I do it like this, I can basically just mix it up a little bit. Now, they do take a little bit more work to do this way. You know, it's obviously a lot easier just to put up the live stream footage just as it was. But I do feel that it's worth the effort to do. And the videos and the experience of watching these multi-class endurance highlights will be better for it. Now, this is one of my favourite views that Shaggy managed to get. It really, really was. Because it just shows, you know, you've got 25 people racing around this track. But look at how peaceful it is. You know, you wouldn't know it. You would not know that 25 people are all racing hard around this track, going as fast as they possibly could. And that's because, you know, the scope of the track as well. But from this perspective as well, you can see so much of the circuit. You can see people, obviously those two guys having a battle there, all the way around Grapeseed. You can see all of that section. As it comes to, you know, the little rounded section with the tyre barriers, you can see all of that. The amazing draw distance of GTA 5 allows that to be seen, and you can see this battle all the way from coming into Grapeseed all the way around. And I think they do dip down a little bit, and Shaggy gets a little bit confused as to where they go. But I'm fairly certain you, from this perspective, and we'll have to try it out in a future race, you would be able to see them from basically the start line, the start-finish line, all the way to the freeway section further over to the right. That's amazing to me that you can see all of that section from just one vantage point. Obviously, you know, using a sniper really helps, but also just the fact that it's so peaceful around this area. You've got so many people having a really, really tough race for an hour and a half, but you would barely know it from standing here. Now, we also managed to get a bit of a controversial aspect here. So as you can see, we've got the perspective of both of these cars. They're actually teammates that take each other out. Well, it was the GT2 car coming around to lap the GT3 car, and the GT2 car actually takes out his own teammate in the GT3 class. In the end, I don't think it did affect the result, but it was just interesting that Shaggy caught a controversial moment in his sniper scope there, and we also had both perspectives of it as well. Feel free to just skip back and watch that again if you want, and that goes for the rest of this video. You know, that because there are multiple different perspectives, not only Shaggy's but my own in the top left and other cars as well. Feel free to go back and look at any other different perspectives to get a more well-rounded view of any specific section that you might have missed. Now, this was another view that I really liked. You know, coming off the freeway here, it's a really, really quick corner, a corner that I really, really like. You take a lot of speed through it, and as you'll see, you know, that the back end of the GT1 pack is just going past there, and there's sort of 6th place in GT1. Obviously, there's the one Dominator behind quite a few GT2 cars, but I'm not too far off at this point. You know, as you can see, I'm coming up in the top left. I'm coming up to this point now. I'm not too far behind the GT1 cars. You know, the gap between myself and the back end of the GT1 field wasn't all that great. Now, what you're seeing here is basically the gap between myself and the chasing GT2 cars of Zenzi and Dodo Monopoly. Now, both of those, as I said before, had an amazing battle throughout the entire race. They were pretty much nose to tail throughout the entire race. There's Zenzi going past and there's Dodo. So those are 2nd and 3rd in GT2, and that's the kind of gap that I had at this point in the race. I was pretty comfortable, and I made no mistakes. So, you know, I was really, really happy with my race at this point. No mistakes. That was 40 going past, who was the leader in GT3. But at this point, all of the GT3 cars had been overtaken by the majority of the GT1 and the GT2 cars as well. So that's just the makeup that we had in this round. That the GT1 and the GT2 cars weren't too far away from each other, but the GT3 cars were quite far off. We'll be having different makeups of the class system in future rounds. You know, there are some rounds where the GT1 cars are really far ahead of the GT2 and the GT3 cars, which are a bit closer. We've also got some rounds where the GT1, GT2 and GT3 are all very close together, and it's going to be a very interesting to see sort of how that happened, how that manifests itself in the race, because you may have some GT2 cars that are able to overtake and beat the GT1 cars, and you may even have some GT3 cars that are able to beat some GT1 cars. So it will be interesting to see how that manifests itself throughout the race, throughout the season I should say. Even, you know, some of the track makeups as well. We do have different tracks, you know, some of them are longer than others. Obviously Los Santos GP is the shortest, whereas the North Loop is the longest, but then the different sort of splits between GT1, GT2 and GT3 will play itself to the tracks as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the season goes. Now this season is a 10 round season. This is the first round, we've got 9 more to go. In these videos I am going to be putting the highlights. I'm going to be doing my best to give you guys as much of a story about what happened as I can, using, you know, I'll be commentating over it like this to give you guys a more rounded view. I might not necessarily make it as in-depth as what we've seen here. Some areas may require me to sort of focus on my own performance and my own footage more so than I've focused on, say, Shaggy's in this video. But for this first episode I just wanted to really show what is possible with GTA racing. You know, a multi-class endurance championship on a track like this, which I already loved it. I already said it was a North Loop killer, but I completely fell in love with it after this race. There's Zenzi and Dodo going past again, going at it hammer and tongs. But yeah, when I finished this race, and a few people said the same thing, you know, the experience of racing on this track in an endurance format with the kind of views that you get just shows you how amazing this game is, and really, you know, what it can do. And you know, we are a big enough racing community for Rockstar to acknowledge this sort of thing. You know, this is incredible that with the formation lap that we had, everybody really taking it seriously, 3 different races in one, having to lap other cars, a full-on endurance race for an hour and a half. It was just an amazing event, and I enjoyed it so much. Now obviously for me, from a personal standpoint, it helped that I actually managed to win the first event. Obviously, you know, it's probably not a surprise that I didn't manage to get to the finish line first at this point. I did get a good start. I managed to build up the gap to Zenzi and Dodo, and then throughout the sort of last 5 or 6 laps I just eased off a little bit, managed that gap, and just made sure not to make any mistakes, which is something that I used to do a lot in Season 1. I did used to make quite a few mistakes, but I didn't throughout the entirety of this race, apart from sort of minor running wide or something like that. So for me personally, it was a very good race, a very good start to the championship, get the full 15 points. But also as the championship itself and for an event, I think it really went well. And yeah, I just loved being part of it. I loved going back through the footage, especially Shaggy's footage, and seeing all the different areas. Yeah, it was just a fantastic event, and I really enjoyed it, and I really want to thank everybody who turned out for it. So I've put this back onto my screen as the main screen, just because to show you sort of how I overtook these GT3 cars. This is coming on to sort of the final 10 minutes of the race, final 10-15 minutes. I don't need to take any risks. I know I've got a big gap to the Zenzi and Dodo who are chasing me. So I'm just going to let this GT3 car do what it needs to do throughout this section, and then overtake it on the long straight. You know, I don't need to take any risks. But that's the beauty of endurance racing. It's the beauty of multi-class racing as well. It's not just about going around a track as quickly as you can. You know, it's not just about getting an overtake and winning. You know, it's so much more than that. So much more thought has to go into it. Should I overtake this GT3 car now, or should I just give it a little bit of time? Can I overtake this GT3 car here, or is another place a little bit better? This GT1 car's now behind me. Where am I going to let that go through? I don't want to lose too much time. You know, there's so much to do. You know, if you get some damage, do you go into the pit lane? If it's the start of the race, maybe it's a good idea to go in the pit lane. If it's near the middle of the race, are you going to lose more time going through the pit lane than you would have done if you'd just driven with the damage? That's the beauty of multi-class racing. It's the beauty of endurance racing. There's a lot more thought that needs to go into it. It's not just a case of going on a track and going around as quickly as possible and, you know, trying to win the race. You're obviously trying to win the race, but there's so many different aspects to it, so much more thought that needs to go into it to get that win and to do well. It's not just about being quick anymore. You've really got to think about every single thing that you do, and that will come into its own more so in the future, I would say. When we're on shorter tracks, when we're having to lap cars more and getting lapped more, that is going to definitely be a factor later on in the rounds and in the season, and it's definitely something that is going to separate sort of the guys who can do this well to the guys who are just quick around a lap but can't really race as well as some others. So here we are at the finish. You know that Chris manages to get the win in the GT1 class. Shaggy is watching the sort of the finish line. He's setting off sticky bombs for, you know, as a celebration sort of thing. I'm round, as you can see in the top left. I'm sort of a third of the way around the track at this point. So I think another 15-20 minutes, and Chris, the leader of the GT1 cars, would have come around and lapped me at that point. But you know the length of the track and the gap between the GT1 and GT2 cars wasn't big enough to allow it to happen in the hour and a half that we had. So yeah, these videos are going to be like this more often than not. You know, I'm going to try my best to include as much as possible and basically talk you through my experience of the race and give you an idea of other people's experiences of the race as well. So as you saw there, you know, Mayor Ryan finishes in second with Craig very close behind him in third for the GT1 class. Now Craig was actually the Dominator that I passed on the very first lap that had a bit of a mistake. So he's done a really good comeback at that point to get up into third. Very close to getting second as well. I've cut back to my position here just because there's one last little thing that I need to do on this final lap, and that's overtake a GT3 car. Now, you know, this is what I'm talking about with multi-class endurance racing. You know, you've got to be smart about how you do this. You've got to make that judgment call. Do I go for the overtake now, or do I just wait? Now really I could have waited for as long as I wanted. This is the last lap. I have a huge gap to the guys behind, but I had the overspeed. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it here, get the move done, give enough space on the outside so not to crowd the GT3 car. And there you go, you know, and there you go. We saw that from both perspectives as well. When you're the GT3 car, you have to be aware of GT2 cars and GT1 cars coming through. When you're a GT2 car, you have to be aware of both. And GT1 cars obviously have to make sure they don't lose too much time overtaking. And that's the beauty of multi-class endurance racing. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, as I've tried to say a couple of times now, these videos are going to be like this. But I'm not necessarily going to be talking for the full 40 minutes. And in fact, to be honest, I'm surprised that I'm still talking even now, and I managed to find something to talk about for the entirety of this video. But in future videos, I may not necessarily talk for all of the race. You know, I might just decide that there are certain sections that I do want to talk over, but there are certain sections that just look amazing, and that was sort of what I was going to do during this race. I was going to just show some of the cinematic shots that Shaggy got and sort of come back in and talk every now and again about my feelings on it. As it happens, I managed to just ramble on for the whole 40 minutes. But yeah, you know, that's how these videos are going to be. That's how this series is going to be. And I really hope that sort of you guys enjoy seeing the race from different perspectives, not only my own, but seeing, you know, the full story of not only each individual race or each individual class, but also the full championship as well, and the different perspectives that we have on the different class systems and the different tracks that we go to, and seeing a full racing championship, just like you get in Formula 1. You know, it has its ups and downs. You have some people better on some tracks than others. You have some classes that are closer to the top cars than others. All that difference, I hope that will come throughout the course of this series, and really be a main feature and something that you guys can really enjoy. So as you saw there, I managed to cross the finish line in first position for the GT2 cars. Managed to get a win in the first race, full 15 points. Doodle manages to get ahead of Zenzi to finish second in the GT2 class, and that's basically how it finishes for the GT1 and the GT2 cars. In GT3, the leader from earlier, which was 40, manages to get the win there. I will be showing it just on the left on the spectating aspect here. 40 gets the win. who was it? It was second. Double S92 was second, and Smithy 112 gets third position for the GT3 class. So if you do want to have a look at all of the information about the championship, that includes all the point standings, the setup that we have, all of the rules and regulations that we have, all of the different the tracks and the classes and the GTs that we've chosen. The link will be in the description. It's going to be the first line of the description, taking you to a big spreadsheet where you can have a look at all of that. I do stream this every single Sunday, so this will be getting live streamed at Sunday 6 PM UK time, and Shaggy also streams at the same time as well. So you get both of those different perspectives, my own take on the race and Shaggy's sort of cinematic view whilst he's spectating at the same time. You get all of that at exactly the same time if you do tune into the live streams on Sunday. So the next round is going to be Los Santos GP in compacts. I hope to see you there. We did have a little podium celebration at the end with the winners in GT. Chris, the winner in GT1, myself, the winner in GT2, and 40, the winner in GT3. So thanks a lot for watching this video, guys. Let me know what you thought about it down below. Do you like the way I've done this one now? I really hope to see you there on Twitch for the next round on Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all the support. I did forget to mention that we did manage to break our maximum Twitch viewership. We managed to get 411. It was actually 412 viewers as a maximum at any one moment throughout the course of the championship, throughout the course of the race on Twitch last Sunday. So it would be great to keep that ball rolling and have you all there watching both my perspective and Shaggy's perspective as well. So thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I really, really do appreciate your support as always, and I'll see you next time.